So let's get going then. So I wanted to talk today about Digital Marketing Strategy 101, a few slides on that. And then we'll sort of drop into the channels and we'll just talk about how they can work together. Now, please bear in mind that today's session, I have not really angled it towards PR at all. So this is like the generic session. So forgive me if it's not overly PR related. The intention is going forward, we'll look to make it more PR specific. Okay. So the digital marketing funnel, still just like it does with traditional marketing, it underpins everything that we do in digital marketing. So typically in a digital marketing strategy for any client that we run, we would always have awareness focused activity that's towards the top of the funnel, that's about reaching new potential customers based on customer personas. And once we've engaged them, once they've connected with our brand, our service, or our product, then we've got different types of marketing that work to engage those known audience members. And then, you know, if you've got actual customer databases and things like that, so at the bottom of the funnel, we've got actual tangible connections with customers, then there's different types of things we can do there. So the key here really is different digital marketing channel groups, different tools and different tactics work in different ways, but in an interconnected way to help a customer make a journey through the funnel. And so again, it's kind of classic marketing strategy here. We segment our audience so that we can target a message and position our brand, our product or service within our industry market and against our competitors. And the way that we do that is that we use different types of marketing messages and formats at different points in the funnel for those different target consumer or customer groups that we're working on behalf of our clients. And then it follows then that there are different types of channel groups and there are different types of individual channels, and they will have slightly different types of audience members on them, and they will have different nuances in the way that they're used. So different media formats will be more or less effective on different channels. Okay. Okay, so just to put this stuff into context then, so I'm 45 years old, and so I remember the years, the time before digital marketing. And so this is to say that if we talk about traditional marketing versus digital marketing, and that's obviously a transition that's been happening, 15 years or so. Google started advertising, I think, about 14 years ago. So that transition has been happening, and it kind of still is happening. It's not a static thing. So and the main impact of the digital component of marketing is that because of the nature of the way that customers go through a journey and they research a product or service in advance of actually engaging with it or buying it, then if you think about it, the customer is in more control today, more direct control of the information gathering component of that journey relative to in the non-digital marketing world. So the most obvious example normally is it is travel. And so if at one stage when I was 18 years old and finished high school, we went on a holiday to celebrate, and you kind of walk down and you go to a thing called a travel agent, and you have a conversation with them and you take some brochures. And so the travel agent was kind of in control of the information gathering phase of that journey. Obviously today, travel agents don't really get a look in on the research phase. But that's not just true of travel, it's effectively true, you know, of pretty much every single industry sector, you know, in the planet. There's a research firm that some of you might have heard of called eConsultancy, and one of their sort of stats that gets very often quoted is that for the average B2B decision-making purchase, 80% of the information gathering component of the decision has been made in advance of a potential B2B customer even making an inquiry to that B2B service provider. So it means that the customer is in control of the awareness phase and the research phase and the decision-making phase of the journeys of our customers, products, services, brands, businesses. And so it doesn't mean there's nothing we can do, it just changes the game a little bit. So digital marketing is essentially about how can we get our messages, our content into the right places at the right time, with the right tone, with the right style, with the right format, so that potential customers of our customers will engage those messages and be drawn towards our customers' products and services. Okay. And so because of that, because of what's happening there, it's changing the way that traditional marketing is working, and it's also changing the way traditional sales is working. So the B2B stat that I mentioned then, so it kind of implies that if you're a B2B salesperson, when the inquiry comes in, you don't really have to do all of the here are our key USPs. The customer, the potential customer, once they make an inquiry, has already probably researched you to a great extent. They've definitely been on your website and compared you to the direct competitors. You know, if it's a busy marketplace, so if they are looking for a PR agency, they'll be looking at Fin Partners and 6 or 7, or 8 or 9 other competitors. And once they've made an inquiry to Fin Partners, they've already kind of probably qualified you down along with 2 or 3 others based on what they read on your website. So the job of the B2B salesperson becomes much more of it's consultative selling, basically, which I'm sure we're all, it's what we all do. And so consultative selling is more important today than it was before, because the customer, when they do get in touch, has already done the pre-qualification work in most cases. It's also because of digital marketing and because it's so measurable. So MintTwist is a digital marketing agency that's been around, for 12 years, 15 years as a sole trading business. And it's really interesting that over that time, the customers that work with our digital agency, the traditional customers who are normally marketing directors, they're increasingly coming with actually sales targets. So how much revenue can you get us? So because digital is so measurable, and because the analytics can tie in potentially into certainly into direct KPIs, it's making certainly digital marketing agencies, it's pushing us towards actual lead generation and being more directly accountable for sales than before. And kind of the days of where traditional marketing agencies might just take a whole bunch of money and create a nice video and put it on some TV networks, there's less of that, and there's more kind of hardcore lead gen. So digital's pushing marketing and sales together. And here is where I think, having said it's not PR centric, here is, I think, the big grand potential opportunity for Fin Partners, because there's something in this around how PR can sort of span a lot of the disciplines. Someone waiting here. No, Katie, I'm on a call, babe. Oh, yes. Someone was waiting, but they've gone. Okay. And then he moves that out the way. So we've got the some of you will be familiar with the sort of so-called the three sort of channel groups, top level channel groups. So there's paid media, there's earned media, and then there's owned media. Okay. So if we talk about the relative influence, so influence, large influence, lower influence, relative of paid and earned media channels versus owned media channels across the marketing funnel. Hopefully you can see my cursor, because this is the top of the funnel, the awareness stuff. This is the middle of the funnel, the research phase, and there's the conversion point of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel. And by the way, just for completeness, so when we talk about a paid media channel and this is in digital marketing context, really we mean Google AdWords, we mean banner ads, we mean YouTube ads, social media ads on Facebook. It's all that type of stuff. Earned media, it means the organic social content that we create, the blog posts that we create, when they're shared or liked or engaged with, it's implicit in most of the channels that if someone likes, so for example, if I like a Fin Partners post on LinkedIn, then by the action of liking that post exposes that post to my own network. So it will appear in some of my network's feed because I liked the Fin Partners post, even if they're not connected to Fin Partners directly, they're a second connection to Fin Partners. So what's happening there, when you create good earned media that's shared more readily, you're kind of organically increasing reach. Oops. Sorry, I accidentally muted myself. Go back. Okay. All right. So earned media is organic social media content that's shared, but it's also SEO. So you can talk about SEO as earned media, because if you create great content and you mark it up in the correct way, then you appear higher on search engines, and a lot of websites get the majority of their traffic from organic search. And so because you create great content and you do the right things, you don't actually pay to come at the top of the search engine rankings, the organic ones. You come as a result of you've earned it as a result of great content and great SEO. And then owned media in the digital world, really we mean our website. We might also mean our Facebook homepage, our LinkedIn homepage. We can call that owned media, although it kind of crosses over a little bit with earned. If you've got an app, that would be an owned media. If we've got like a dedicated microsite, which I'm sure some of your clients will have, those things are all owned media. And so in the digital marketing world, the reason why the paid media channels and the earned media channels have more influence than owned media at the top of the funnel is because in the digital marketing world, something like social media advertising and AdWords and SEO is a great way of reaching potential customers that are the right, they're either searching for the right types of product or service, or they are demographically the right type of potential customer, but there's no awareness there. They're not actually aware of our product or service, or even aware that we exist. So because we can use social media advertising to target on a demographic, and we can use Google AdWords to target on people who are searching for answers to specific questions, so we can infer a potential customer and create that awareness, but if we create the right sort of message. And so that's why the paid and earned digital channels are more influential at the top of the funnel. When it comes to the middle of the funnel, when customers are aware of our product and service and they're in the phase of information gathering, and more importantly, probably comparing us to other competitors and potential, direct and indirect competitors, then at this stage of the funnel, a lot of their research is going to be focused on our actual websites and on the content on those websites. And they would be making sort of qualitative and subjective and objective comparisons between us and other options. And so at this stage, this is where our website content and our engagement tactics more generally are really important. And so owned media content at this stage is relatively more important. At the bottom of the funnel is quite dependent on the type of business and the industry sector. So, that's more variable. So we'll leave that for now. I'm going to stop in a moment and sort of take any questions. So if there are any questions so far, do please feel free to put them in the chat, and then we'll sort of take them in a moment. So to summarize then, when we run a digital marketing strategy, we're using some channel groups and some tactics to work on awareness, and that's about creating reach with our message. Simplistically, that's what it's about. At the middle of the funnel, we want to engage and we want to influence our potential customers to engage with our product and service. And then again, at the bottom of the funnel, it's kind of a bit sort of industry dependent, but very often it's actually servicing our customer and then working on loyalty and reputation. Because if we are in a sort of upsell and repeat sell business, then obviously any work we do on our existing customers will create new customers. But the other thing here is that, so much these days, but at some stage, I would speak to potential customers of our digital agency, and they would say, look, we're not sure if we really need to invest in digital marketing. We've got such a good, we get such great word of mouth. Our customers just, make recommendations, and that's how we win our new business. And I think it's really important to say that I think, and everyone at MintTwist thinks word of mouth is probably the best marketing tactic the history has ever known, and it probably always will be. And PR is definitely around to support that and keep it going and grow it as much as possible. And so we at MintTwist don't believe that anything that you do on digital marketing has got anything to do at all about replacing that. Quite the opposite. If you do good marketing, particularly on your own customers, you'll just increase the amount of word of mouth you actually get. Because if you're touching customers who are loyal and have had a good experience, if you're touching them with messages, the recommendation that they would have made anyway might come a bit quicker, and the recommendation that they were going to make but they just kind of forgot about it because we're a bit more front of mind might come when it otherwise wouldn't have. So we would typically measure what we call an indirect uplift in our activity. So what that means is if you run a sort of social media advertising campaign to create awareness, and then a remarketing campaign to get sales, and I'll talk more about those things in a moment, then you will measure a certain amount of direct ROI, but you also get some indirect ROI, meaning more organic traffic turning up. So that is the reach and engagement bit. So before I talk about tactics, are there any questions? Okay, I'm going to keep moving. Can someone write something in the chat just to make absolutely sure that I'm not talking to myself? I'm sure, absolutely sure I'm not, but I just want to make sure of that. All right, cool. All right, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for that. Hello, everyone. Right, great. I'm going to move the chat off screen, so, but I'll come back to it at different points, and I'll leave that one there because people are coming in. Okay. So what we're going to do, in this section, I'll talk about digital marketing tactics, but I'll talk about it in the context of the different points in the funnel. So this first point is talking about like digital marketing 101, like tactics for creating awareness at the top of the funnel. So this is top of the funnel stuff. And so in general, the channel types that work well to create awareness are the paid media channels and the earned media channels. So when we talk about digital marketing 101, sort of what MintTwist does, remember this is not, PR fits in here massively, but we're talking at the moment, for today at least, about, you know, digital marketing agency type services. So it would be SEO, search engine optimization. It would be display advertising, which typically means banner advertising. This is the symbol for Google AdWords. So this is Google AdWords search engine advertising, where you pay per click. And this is social advertising. I'll just drop out and sort of pull up my screen just to sort of show examples. So banner advertising, if we go on the Daily Mail, so the Daily Mail, it has banner advertising on it, and actually if you click in here you can see it's driven by Google. So this is Google advertising platform drives the advertising for Daily Mail and many other websites. And so if you wanted to reach, the thing to say about banner advertising, it's a combination of the media on which it's placed, but also to a certain extent, because it's powered by Google, there is some element of targeting it at the individual. So Google knows about Elliot King. So you can get levels of personalization with banner advertising, but you can also place it by the media on which it gets placed. So obviously 101, if you want to reach right-leaning people in the UK, then Mail Online is one place to do that. Left-leaning, politically left-leaning, Guardian would be a better place. And incidentally, this is being served by Criteo, but they actually also have Google advertising integrated as well. If I run a search for PR agency in London, so these adverts here, these are all Google PPC ads. So if we've got any competitors you don't like, then you just type PR agency in London and you click on them and it costs them money. So that's one sort of fun fact. But these will be paying potentially £1 a click, potentially less, potentially more. It kind of depends on how competitive the search term is. And as we mentioned, the idea is with these follow-on sessions, we could spend a session talking about, you know, advertising, social, PPC advertising in much more detail. As we come down here, these are the organic results. So when we click on these, no one's paying for these links. You know, they're getting these links. So push PR is top for this particular search in my particular country in the UK, because their content and their website is viewed by Google as being the most relevant and the most weighty and the most trustworthy to give me information about this particular search. Okay, social advertising, you know, this is a sponsored ad in Twitter. So we can see that because it's promoted. Get to my Facebook tab. So as I've moved down to social media advertising, is going to be very focused on, so Facebook has the best targeting capability of all the advertising platforms from a targeting at the person perspective. So I'm obviously a digital marketing person, so LinkedIn are going to be motivated to get me to boost my sales productivity by doing more advertising and paid services on LinkedIn. Obviously these are ads up here, and they will all be, you can see hiring freelancers is relevant potentially for agency people like us. So these are all personalized ads. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, and so all of that type of advertising, all of those examples that I just showed you there, just for absolute clarity, if you think about it, they all required me. I didn't click on any of them, but if I did click on them, if the message is right and the message is targeted enough at me and it's enticing enough, and it looks sort of sensible enough, then I will click on that ad. And so once I click on that ad, you're then hitting normally a landing page on the client website. And there are other destinations, but that's probably the main one. And the point of that landing page, or the job of that landing page, is to serve the what is our engagement tactic? What is the assets that we've got to bring you to that next bit of the journey of your funnel, so that you can get the awareness and get the key messages that we want to push at you from an awareness perspective. And then what we're really trying to do is to get the customer to make that move, so that they move into our engagement part of the funnel. Okay. and we're in doing that, we're trying to create awareness, and we're trying to sow the seeds of trust so that we can bring them down the funnel. So when we talk about, and this is talking about those 4 channels that are good for creating awareness. So Google AdWords is what we mean when we say PPC in this context. Organic search engine optimization is that, social media advertising, and display advertising. So let's just compare and contrast these channels. So if you think about it, then because of the way that something like banner advertising works, or social media advertising works on Facebook, if we have a client who wants to get their message out to 50% of the population of the UK, then because about 60% of the population are on the UK are on Facebook, more than that, then if we throw enough money at Facebook, we could basically go a long way to reaching half the population of the UK, over a period of a few weeks at least. And so the potential number of impressions with something like social media advertising, is potentially very high. It's really only limited by money, and banner advertising kind of works the same way. So you can be proactive in creating reach with these two channel groups. Now, conversely, because Google AdWords and SEO are forms of marketing that rely on users to actually type something into a search engine, the potential impressions is really a function of how popular that particular search is. So if we've got a client with a really specific product and they want to do AdWords or SEO, if they want to do AdWords, great. Because it's really specific, it's when people do click on it, you're going to be absolutely right for them. But we can't just create massive awareness using PPC, because it's so specific that only a certain number of people will be typing it. More generally, PPC and SEO is a function of how many people are typing in that particular search term into that particular search engine. So there might be lots and lots and lots of people who are potential customers for Fin Partners, and only a subset of them at any given month are going to be typing in PR agency London, PR agency Germany, PR agency, Asia, or whatever. And so for that reason, these are passive. These are passive forms of advertising or marketing. Now, the interesting thing is, as a result of what we've just been saying there, that it feels like Google well, search marketing in general is more like this. It's going to be a little bit more trusted because you're answering a question. Yeah. And social media advertising and display advertising relative to the search marketing channels will be potentially less trusted. But it's not to say that that's bad and that's good, not at all. Given what we've just been saying, social media advertising and display advertising is really good at reaching people that might not otherwise be aware of us. SEO and PPC is really good for people that are typing in relevant phrases, and it doesn't need to just be brand and conversion focused phrases. It can be qualitative questions, like it can be research questions that imply a requirement for the service. So how can I create more awareness for my brand in a new market? That is an example of a long tail awareness type query that would be interested to, you know, a PR multinational PR agency. And actually, in general, so social media advertising and display advertising, the cost per click relative to search advertising is lower. So underpinning all of these things is a marketplace. And so because PPC search is very specific, you're more likely to get a high value action on the website for a given click through from a search ad than you are from a given click through from a Facebook ad. So what we're saying is Facebook social display works really well right at the top of the funnel, and the PPC and SEO is kind of a bit below that because people are entering in terms that imply they're on your journey. So yeah, the customer's in the research phase already. So the cost per clicks, and that's the reason the cost per clicks are higher for PPC than they are for social media advertising. The reason there's the trust for SEO is slightly higher than the trust for PPC is, you know, when you sit when you talk to a class like this, and if we were all sitting in the same room and I said, put your hands up if you click on the organic ad over the sponsored ad, most of you would put your hand up. So most people, you know, towards the organic ad, even though the paid ads sit at the top. It doesn't mean they don't work. They absolutely do work because you only pay when someone actually clicks. Okay. Let's just check the chat. Okay, are there any, so we've got a couple of, thanks Sergio for answering these questions. Good points. Are there any stats to say that audiences prefer organic search rankings rather than paid PC? And so we just covered that. Thank you, Annika, for preempting that question. So I'll keep going, but please do put your questions in, and I'll stop again in a couple of slides' time. So we're talking now about the middle of the funnel. So this is how we're going to actually engage customers. Okay, and so the assumption here is that this is not a customer, rather it's a potential customer still at this stage from a marketing perspective. And what the assumption is, they've received one or more awareness message. I hope my connection remains stable. Please shout if it's not. So the assumption here is that this audience at this stage have received one or more awareness messages, and they're kind of aware of our product or service. They might not be ready to buy yet, or they might be still in early stages of comparing us to other people. So at this point, we want types of content that's gonna create more touch points. Essentially, we want to create a relationship. So some marketers will talk about like know, like, and trust as a form of the journey. So first of all, a potential customer needs to know you. Then they need to start to kind of like you a little bit. And, you know, typically people will only ever buy from you if, you know, if they actually trust you. And so the types of content that work, the types of tactics that work well at doing that, you know, one of them's remarketing and retargeting. Just high level, just for the benefit of those that might not be clear, and there probably will be, a number of people, just given my experience of doing these types of things. So when you go and look at that mountain bike that you really are thinking about buying, or that item of clothing that you really like, or that kind of high value gift that you're going to get for your partner for their birthday or for Christmas, and you're kind of on the page and you're kind of thinking about it, but it's quite expensive, and then you kind of the next day you're on your mobile phone and then you're seeing adverts for the same product coming back to you. So that is remarketing. It's also called retargeting. So retargeting, mean exactly the same thing. And the technology is driven by cookies. And so whether you accept cookies or not, I mean, retargeting is also driven by the actual platforms themselves. So it's cookie-based technology, but it's also built into the ads platforms. So if we set up a Facebook campaign for our clients, one of our clients that has some Facebook banner adverts and it has a Facebook video, and we run that campaign for 1 month, and let's say it reaches 1 million people, and let's say of that 1 million people, 50,000 of those people, let's say 10,000 of those people actually click onto our website and kind of do the thing that we wanted them to do. So that would be a conversion rate of 1%. If out of those 990,000 people that didn't actually click on the advert, but if they did engage with the advert in some way, and so Facebook and all of the other platforms allow you to measure a sort of soft engagement, and an example of that might be for those people who watched 50% of our 2-minute sort of advertising video, we could take that people, that might be another 200,000 people, and we could draw the assumption that that particular group is they've shown some potential interest because they've actually watched a minute of our 2-minute video. They wouldn't have been doing that unless there's actually some level of interest there. So they didn't actually go on to click to do the thing that we wanted them to do, but they showed enough interest for us to say, right, that is an audience segment that I want to pick up out of that campaign and put down here, and I want to start remarketing and retargeting to them with a follow-on message that's going to follow on from what we were saying in the advertising video. And I'm going to use that audience and I'm going to push it into the Google display network so that they're going to get banner ads on the Guardian or the Daily Mail or whatever kind of they're into. And we're going to serve those people, and we're going to give them a second touch or a second engagement that we hope will bring them further down into the sales process. So that's, sorry for those who knew it already, relatively long description of remarketing. Let's just check this question. So is there remarketing going on via the relationship information given to Facebook, Instagram, e.g. I get marketed stuff related to my partner's search terms? So it's a really good question, Jonathan. So one of the, there's several ways that remarketing can work. So one of them is IP address. So if you're kind of inside your family, you're often going to be using the same computers. So it's absolutely the case that you could get served an ad based on your IP address that is not actually for you, but some other member of your household. It also can be driven directly by the user profile. So if you're remarketing, so the example I mentioned, you've got a Facebook campaign, you take the audience and then you run it on Google display. If you've got a Facebook campaign, you can also remarket exclusively on Facebook. And if you do that, you could make it discrete to the actual logged in user. And I think the key thing to say here is that all of the advertising platforms and the way that remarketing data can be handled, it can be done to such an extremely accurate level that from a from a kind of everyone on this call, most people on this call perspective, if you wanted to brief in a really, really precise remarketing audience, and you wanted to say, I want to see all of the people who watched 50% of that video within the last 2 weeks and have been on our website within the last 4 weeks and who are males between the age of 40 and 50, like that is an audience group that you could potentially, that, you know, we and other digital advertising professionals can and do create. So you can really be as specific as you want in terms of the audience, the remarketing audience that you build up, as long as you've got all of your systems set up, which, you know, is that, and that's what the setup process is. So makes sense. I think people sometimes confuse this with being listened to by devices. So that's another good question, Jonathan. And Natalie and I did a podcast recently where we were talking all about voice search and voice interaction. And so there's no official way for an agency like MintTwist to kind of to do advertising for anyone that is activated by what people say. However, there is plenty of kind of anecdotal evidence that there's kind of dark experiments kind of going on. And frankly, if you were Facebook and Google and you weren't testing this stuff out in the real world, then you would be missing a trick. So the technical capability is already there. It's really easy because there are so many apps and devices that are connected. So it's almost certainly happening. It's just not out there because of obviously government sort of regulations. But whenever, you know, at some stage, no doubt it will come. So yes, we are unfortunately being listened to by our devices. Okay, so other forms of content, and I'll dig more into video in a moment, but let's sort of move on. So the thing about video, it can work really well at the middle of the funnel. It's a great way to engage an audience. You know, blog articles. If we're in a sector where, you know, knowledge and becoming a recognized authority is important, then blog content is obviously really valuable, as are podcasts. So if you think about it, if you've got a series of blog articles, then, you know, repurposing those into a series of episodic video and episodes of podcasts, this type of content is increasingly working really well in the middle of the funnel. I also think, by the way, it's another really interesting area where Fin partners can actually add a lot more value than most other agency partners that brands and business will have, because this is where, you know, this is where storytelling, you know, really comes to the fore. Email marketing, some companies, some industry sectors do very well with email marketing and potentially automated email marketing. So this is where you've got responsive automated messaging going on based on how users interact with email. Okay, so in general, at the middle of the funnel, what we're trying to do, particularly if it's a service or a product that requires someone to actually engage the business. So if it's a B2B service, then typically the job of digital marketing is to create inquiries or to create leads. There's no sort of, you can't sort of e-commerce checkout if you're buying, you know, a jumbo jet or something, or, you know, or a service like PR. You know, you're looking to create inquiries. So you're using digital media to create real world change. And the analogy, I think, is for this, at this point in the funnel, we're looking to close the gap so that our customers can make a leap of faith. Did you like that? So that they can make a leap of faith and actually connect with us in the real world. And so if you think about it, if you've got a podcast, a series of podcasts that's genuinely interesting and genuinely engaging, that know, like, trust thing, you just get the customer to like you a bit more. You know, hopefully you guys have been listening to me for an hour or so. Hopefully you like me a bit more than you did before you knew me, because I'm engaging you. We're engaging with each other, hopefully. And so so that's kind of that's how the video and podcast thing works, really. So eBay have got this, eBay use podcasts that are all about small businesses and how to start and how to get through challenging times, and episode 83 on business operations. And so they will use this content to engage potential customers, so startup business owners. eBay is a place where you can sell your products and services. So they've got that content so that they can engage audiences, and they will have awareness campaigns that are about marketing the podcast itself. So in advance of marketing eBay's services for business, they're marketing the content, the value that they can add in advance of making a sale. I'll come back to video because there's another section, and I'll bring that to the fore. Okay, so we spoke about remarketing a little bit earlier on, but just to sort of there's one more point to add here, or to clarify here. So typically it sort of makes sense for it to be a social media advertising campaign or a brand awareness campaign. Some kind of awareness focused campaign would typically be the trigger to push a user to a landing page that's pushing some first level awareness type messages. If we do get a conversion, great, but just as an FYI, for any sort of awareness focused campaign, you would expect conversion rates. So let's say the campaign was to get people to sign up for an industry event. If you went to an audience of 100,000, you might get click-throughs of 1,000, so 1%. And then of those clicks, you might get, if it's a very niche offering, you might get 100, you might get up to 10%. You wouldn't get 20%. You certainly wouldn't get more than 25%. So the majority of people, even if they're right and even if they clicked, they're not actually going to convert the first time, because just that's the nature of customer journeys, even if it doesn't mean to say that they don't want to. And so that's the point about remarketing. We want to go back to those people and remarket our conference, so we stay front of mind, and then they do actually go to their line manager and say, "Oh, can I go to this conference? It's going to cost £500. And the manager says yes, and then off the back of the remarketing ad, they may click through and then buy. Or very likely, like I said, you've got indirect conversions. Yes, they've seen the remarketing ads, but when they're ready to buy, they just organically search the conference, and they will come back and they will convert at some later stage. But the remarketing advertising will increase the overall ROI of a campaign. So what we mean by that is, if MintTwist are running a campaign that's about social media advertising or banner advertising or something like that, then if you didn't have a remarketing play attached to it, you would basically be missing a trick. Because if you include remarketing and you connect it with a campaign like this, then the overall return on investment would be higher, because the conversion rates from a remarketing campaign are probably 4 or 5 times higher than the conversion rate of the original campaign by itself. Obviously, it's not to say that the original campaign is bad, because you need the original campaign to create the remarketing audience in the first place. Cost per clicks on a remarketing campaigns are typically higher because they convert higher, but they're not as high as the uplift you would get in conversions, if that makes sense. So conversions might go up 5 or 6 times, cost per click might be 2 or 3 times. The other key thing to say is, when you do run remarketing, it's important to send them to a different landing page that's pushing a more engagement focused or conversion focused message, as opposed to the original message, which was more awareness focused. Just because I'm sort of anticipating question. Some of you might be saying, but remarketing can be really annoying. So yes, it definitely can be really annoying. So just like the way that you can build a remarketing audience, you can be really nuanced about how you do that. You can also be really nuanced about how remarketing works. So you can set something called frequency, which says the number of times the maximum number of times any individual user can receive the same message on a given day or a given week. You can also set, the maximum duration that you remarket to the same user, and you can do much more. So you can mitigate the annoying factor of remarketing, which many of us will have experienced personally. Okay. Excuse me. So at the bottom of the funnel, here at this point, it's really, really dependent on industry sector. But in general, as a kind of general thing, we're trying to, wherever we're marketing, when we're marketing to our a customer, a past or current customer base, then we are probably trying to create repeat business, but we're also trying to, as we touched on earlier, just motivate word of mouth referrals. So it's a kind of motivating word of mouth referrals. And so one of the ways of doing this is to be able to recognize and reward and leverage kind of loyalty. So it does depend on the sector, but obviously let's take travel and hospitality sector. So for that sector, reviews are absolutely crucial, as I'm sure everyone knows and can imagine. And so having for in that sector, having a formalized review strategy kind of makes sense. So if you're visiting a hotel, and on leaving the hotel, if the email that comes to say sends you invoice and thanks for the stay, then if that can say if you've had any concerns, let us know so we can do something about it. If you and obviously, as everyone knows, if you get ahead of a complaint, then you can often mitigate the effect and turn it around. But also, if you can direct users to your particular review platform of choice, then you can build up a bank of hopefully strong reviews that you can then use in your marketing and in your communications. And actually, if it's Google reviews, you can even use it in your Google advertising. It can be formally incorporated into. And so reviews are going to be very important for some businesses, like loyalty schemes. So for coffee shops, obviously the loyalty card is great because it makes it easy for the customer, but for the company, it just gives them loads and loads of data on which they can then find and then market specifically to their top 20% of customers, who are going to be the ones who are most likely to motivate referrals. And this is organic social media works in the same way, and obviously there's lots to do with PR at this section, but up and down the funnel as well. Okay. All right, so I'll as always just throw in a question if you want one, but the question really for ourselves, but actually for our clients, would be kind of, what is your funnel strategy? And I thought let me just sort of talk about MintTwist. So as a digital marketing agency, we the main way that we create awareness in our market is through SEO. So if you type in digital agency London into most search engines, you will see that MintTwist is either the second or third, and sometimes the first organic search result that you get for that generic phrase. So they're typing in digital agency London, or some of you might be doing it now because, or now you're just doing it for fun. But if normally you were typing a phrase like that in, you're looking for a digital agency in London. You're not saying you want it to be any particular agency, and there's no branded search term there. So it's a generic search term. PR agency is a generic search term. And so because it's a generic search term, that means the traffic you're capturing is like you're creating awareness essentially when you're presented in the list, and then if they click through, if you're higher you are up the organic list, the more percentage of people will click through, and then then the awareness is created. And then is there enough engagement content in there? Are we saying the right things in the right way to pull them along? So MintTwist, we pay a lot of attention, ever since we started, we pay a lot of attention to creating really useful blog articles that are really interesting, and by themselves will rank for certain search phrases, and they'll bring in traffic. So they'll also create awareness, but also if someone's come in via the Digital Agency London route, we want them to see that we are a recognized authority in digital marketing. We've started to create much more video just recently. We've created our first podcast episode, and there's more to come. So, you will have engagement. Every brand will have engagement assets. Are they using them in the right way? Can they connect them better with their awareness campaigns? Probably in many cases they can. And then, what are your actual engagement tactics? So if you're a B2B business and you've got most people that we sell to, we meet them, at the very least it would be a video conference. So we have these kind of workshop events, and they're there to provide value to the audience, but it's also an excuse for a potential customer just to come in and kind of just check us out and see see who we are, see what we look like. And very often it's an easy kind of first step for a potential customer to go to a workshop and then actually start speaking to us about projects. So that's a MintTwist funnel, but every client, every organization, every brand will have their own kind of funnel strategy. And so, sometimes it's like back of a matchbox type approach. What channels and tactics and messages are you using, Mr. or Mrs. Client, today? Give us the information, and we can go away and come up with some digital ideas for you that might help you to optimize your digital marketing funnel, which is going to help you achieve your real world objectives. Okay. All right, there's no questions, so I'll keep going. I'll go for another sort of about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll finish at about 11:30, and then we will. So any more questions, if we want to have a general chat, we can do that. I think if Greg's still on the call, I'll probably sort of hand back to Greg and maybe Annika to sort of summarize, and we can hand over the mic to anyone else as well. I think everyone is able to self-control their mic and their video. So if you do want to say something at the end, I would certainly be delighted to hear from anyone who wants any thoughts. And it's not about saying thank you. It's about like what we want to do going forward. Okay, so audits, I think that, and these slides, by the way, I'll share them with Greg so they can go out to everyone who wants to review the slides. And by the way, this session is also being recorded. So once that recording process is, we'll put that up on YouTube, and that will be available for everyone as well. But this slide probably kind of speaks for itself, really. The audit process, it looks very much like a marketing audit, because it basically is, you look at the audience, you look at the industry, and the market, you look at what's going on inside the organization, and then you come up with a whole bunch of ideas. When we go over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about SEO and content and social media. The reality is that most clients will point us at something like an SEO audit. When they do that, we tend to say to them, look, well, social media is so connected and content is so connected, they kind of go together. So typically something like this would be focused around where are the opportunities in SEO, organic, social, what content do you have, and how can it be repurposed to drive a social media stroke SEO strategy. And I think the reason I'm talking about SEO and content and social is I think it's a really natural first touch point between between PR and digital marketing. I've added these two specifically for this conversation because I wanted to talk about two trends that are going on in digital marketing that are influencing digital marketing strategy, but I also think it implies and infers an opportunity for Fin partners. And so one of the trends that's happening, and it's going to continue to happen for a while, is the growth of competition for digital media ad placements. So what that quite simply means is that if we go back to my Facebook page, the real estate here is being increasingly, so Facebook is being increasingly taken up by adverts. And so Facebook is in a relatively difficult situation because the more ads they put on their platform, and Google's exactly the same, the more ads that are presented on a search results page, there is a relative reduction in trust from the actual users. So with social media, if you don't pay for the products, then you are the product. So we are the products that Facebook is selling to advertisers, like our clients. And so they don't want to annoy the products too much. They want us to retain a good experience of Facebook and a good experience of Google search results, so we don't go off to another social media or search engine platform. So they're kind of limited to how many ads they can actually cram onto the platforms. And so what that means is, because obviously digital advertising is really effective and it does work and it is really measurable, so therefore obviously advertisers are spending more and more and more every year, and more and more and more. And what that means is there's more competition between the advertisers for these limited number of placements. So Facebook can carry on growing its users, in some markets around the world, but in a lot of its markets, it's almost plateaued and the numbers are not particularly growing. So that's causing increased competition because it's a marketplace. The cost per click for social media advertising and for search advertising, basically all forms of digital advertising, is going up. It's going up every year. Now, it's not to say that it's not still good value. It is, if it's set up correctly. We make an ROI for all of our conversion focused clients, and so it is good value, but there is increased competition and there is increased cost per click. So CPC is cost per click, and so it's a charging model for advertising. So when we look at our Facebook page and we see some adverts being shown to us, the advertiser is either paying a CPM model, which is cost per impression, or cost per 1,000 impressions, however you want to say it. It's a cost for being shown to me. If I actually click on it, no worries at all. If I actually click on it, because when someone asks a question, it's always going to be relevant for plenty of other people. So no, it's really good to ask questions. And so if I click on that ad, and as we said, in social media advertising, click-through rates might be 1% or something like that. CPC would be cost per click. And then 1% means of 100 people, one person clicked on it. That can also be termed as CTR as the other acronym. So CTR means click-through rate, and it's the percentage of people who were shown the ad, impressions, who actually clicked. So because of this increased competition and the increased amount of space that social platforms are giving up to advertisers, and because more and more people have been using social media for much longer, we've therefore got more connections. What's happening with organic social media marketing is that we are, as brands, all brands will be getting a decreased reach from their organic content. So if you had a Facebook page or a LinkedIn page 10 years ago, and you created a post for the page followers, for the people who liked your page, then you might get 80% of people would actually see that post, and a subset of those people would actually click on that post. If today, you know, let's just take an average brand or organization, you've got an Instagram account or you've got a Facebook page and you create a post, you're probably going to be lucky if that even reaches 5 or 10% of your audience. And when I say reach, I mean they got the impression. So the truth is that organic audiences will not really be seeing your content. So it's kind of mildly annoying, really, because Facebook and Google are kind of sending us down, us meaning collective, us as marketers and PR people, and everyone, advertisers, the brands themselves, they're sending us down the road of paying to reach our own connections. So one type of audience group that you can build up is people who like your page. You can then pay to send them a message. So that's great for Facebook and Google, but it kind of seems a bit unfair, but particularly if you're of the age, you know, as I am, where you can remember that actually in the olden days, I had an email list of all my clients, and I kind of just, if I wanted to get a message out, I'll just send them all an email. And obviously GDPR has sort of changed that a bit, so most email lists have shrunk. People are relying on the social channels to connect with their customers, but actually you can't even really connect with them because the organic reach is so reduced. And so that, in our view, in the view of, you know, let's say the industry, but MintTwist certainly subscribe to this, is that the value of your owned media. So if you can create content that's sticky enough, like podcasts, episodic podcasts, like episodic video, like a really good blog, like a, you know, a cool app that's providing, like whatever your engagement tactic is, and you can have that connection with a customer that's not only focused on selling them stuff, then you've got your own media connection with those clients on which you can place your conversion, you know, your subtle conversion messages. So you don't have to pay Facebook and Google, which is only ever going to go up in price. So we think that that is a trend, and that's something that we want to be saying to our clients so that we can build out more owned media, and actually that stuff's more fun anyway. But it's not to say at all to say that social advertising and Google advertising doesn't work. There absolutely is a place for it, because arguably there's no better way of creating really, really targeted awareness focused campaigns, because the targeting capabilities of the social platforms are unsurpassed, really, in reality, and the ability to engage people who are searching for relevant phrases is unsurpassed by search advertising. And so you would want these things, but the point is, when we do create those connections, we want to send them to some engagement content that is owned by us. And then the thing about voice interfaces, which still in some ways feels like it's in its infancy, and it kind of is, but behind the scenes, the technology is improving at an astonishingly fast rate. Some people are saying that this is going to even further increase the power of brands, because the way that you would structure searches when you're speaking to a device is different. So the way that you speak things is different to the way that you type things, and you're more likely to use brands in a search phrase. So you might type burger restaurants, you know, near me into search engine. You might say, you know, McDonald's or Burger King or Five Guys is the new one into your voice interface. So the power of brands, you know, is kind of always there, and it's potentially going to grow. And so we think that using social and search platforms and pointing them to some sort of engagement tactic that might be focused around these things, but it could be others, makes sense. This slide's probably one. Let me just go back. I missed a question. So LinkedIn, how does this platform yield versus FB and IG on targeting? So LinkedIn, really good question. So we think LinkedIn is the B2B version of what Facebook and Instagram is for the B2C world. So LinkedIn, if you want to target business users, its advertising model works in a very, very similar way. The targeting capabilities are more focused on the job, on the professional description of users, so obviously job titles, salary, where they work, industry they work in, but also obviously LinkedIn companies that they follow, LinkedIn pages that they follow. You can target them based on the company that they work in. So in terms of, you know, business personas, those, you can reach them and target them on LinkedIn, and then point them to an appropriate search result. So kind of in the awareness kind of 101 strategy, we said social media at the top in parallel with search for relevant search terms. So take that example. The B2B version of it is LinkedIn and Google AdWords. The B2C version of it is Facebook and Instagram, and, you know, TikTok and potentially others, and still AdWords. So AdWords works across both of them. LinkedIn, just as an FYI, that the cost per clicks typically are higher on average than the cost per clicks from Facebook and Instagram, just typically because what's being sold is typically a higher value. Okay, so this slide is probably just one to sort of take away, you know, and digest at your own time. But the people, you know, involved, and, you know, PR, as we're saying, can likely span everything here. At the top of the funnel, the tools involved, how can we target a message based on customers that we don't know them, they don't know us, but based on our personas and profiles, or what they're searching in to search engines, you know, can we reach them? Our objective is to create awareness, and the KPI might be reach. So how many of them are we reaching on a monthly basis? At the middle of the funnel, you know, it's all about influence, you know, and we've discussed some of the tactics that we can use in terms of creating content that creates increased touch points. And so engagement is what we're measuring here, and it might be clicks, it might be percentage of video views, it might be people, you know, it might be something more specific, like, you know, people who turn up for our event, or people who sign up for our thing. Whatever it is, it's probably something to do with engagement. And at the bottom of the funnel, it's sales, typically sales. Okay. What's the time? I'm going to do a last few slides now on role of content, and then we'll go in and start talking. Let someone else start talking. So I'm just going to talk really high level about content. We will probably go deeper into this in one of the weeks, but in general, content just underpins everything that we do. So MintTwist already, we already talk about digital PR, because the truth is, if you've got a content asset, it's about how can you push it out, how can you use it. Thanks, Amy, it's a pleasure. And content's going to underpin pretty much, you know, all of the organic channels, so organic social media, organic email, you know, engagement, influencers, outreach. We've spoken, you know, a lot about paid and earned, so we understand that these things, where these things meet, it's about creating inbound marketing. So remember at the top when we said that customers are in charge of their own journey and their own research phase. So we're trying to put the right messages in the right place so that they come to us, which is hopefully what PR is all about, which is wonderful. All this slide is saying is that if we create one sort of content asset, story, if you like, so a media story, then we want to put it on our website, want to use it as sales collateral, use it in a newsletter, use it wherever we can. Where are all of our touch points? And I've put social media a whole number of times, because when Annika and I were talking the other day, we spoke about the possibilities of repurposing content so that it can be used multiple times across multiple channels. And, you know, that's a really cool thing to do. And then it's about creating connections between our content. So episodic content is something is my buzzword at the moment, because if we can create episodic content and one bit connects to another, we just increase the likelihood that we're engaging the right types of audiences at the middle of the funnel. So beyond just one message this week that's gone viral, okay, great, I would rather have a whole bunch of relatively valuable pieces of content that don't necessarily go viral by themselves, but over time organically grow a really genuinely engaged audience. If you think about TV shows that you really like, you know you're going to go and look for it. You know, is that possible? So look, video, I don't think I'm gonna sort of actually, you know, what you can watch the video, but I'm pretty sure that some people might be familiar with this Like a Girl, you know, video. It's really, really cool. And, you know, there was a Like a Girl campaign that Always created quite a few years ago now. That was underpinned by research that said young girls, you know, entering into puberty years relative to the rest of their lives have a drop off in confidence. And Like a Girl campaign was all about challenging the stereotypes of, you know, run like a girl or play football like a girl. And, you know, it's a video that hits all the right notes. It creates emotion, and it's great because it basically went really viral. It was obviously underpinned by a market research campaign that was like genuinely really interesting, but it's also hitting the right notes. So, you know, I'm a father of 3 daughters, one you probably saw coming in and out of. They're all going to go through this. So, you know, I can relate to it. Mothers of daughters, which would probably motivate these types of purchases, at least initially, they would be able to connect to it and potentially target the actual consumers themselves. So that's kind of video as brand awareness video. It's not letting me go to. Then there's, if you go like Glossier, have this Get Ready With Me. So this is an example of episodic video. It's been a bit interrupted with the health crisis, but on a weekly basis, they will just get, you know, an ambassador of some description to have a makeup tutorial. And, you know, many of these types of brands will do this, but this type of content is a really good example of engagement content. I've already spoken about the podcasts, you know, the MintTwist blog, you know, it's because it's been going for a long time and it's well written, it gets independently ranked by itself. This is engagement content as well in blogs. And look, in this slide here, there's loads of different marketing formats that can be used to sit inside a digital marketing strategy, and these are just some of them. And then I think the final thing I just want to say is and you've obviously got the relationships with clients and you've got the remit to go and do that. The opportunity to repurpose, and I'm sure this is happening, but repurpose, you almost can't do enough of it, particularly once you've got a really great piece of content, because content is king, frankly.